This story will be about a girl who has suffered a difficult fate and she has learned to get out of the situation. Katia moved from another state to a big city in search of new opportunities. The first few days were difficult: a new place, unfamiliar people, loneliness. To distract herself a little, she decided to take a walk in the park. In the park, her attention was drawn to a young man playing the guitar. His music was full of warmth and sincerity. Katia stopped, and the guy, Kevin, noticed her and, smiling, invited her to join him. They started talking. Katia told him about her move, and Kevin shared his passion for music. He had lived in this city all his life and was happy to offer to show her the best places. From that day on, they often walked together, exchanged dreams, and supported each other. Over time, their friendly meetings grew into something more. Katia realized that the new city had become like home to her because of one special person, Kevin, and he thanked fate for the day in the park when their paths crossed. Kevin hesitated for a long time, but eventually gathered the courage to ask Katia to be with him. Her response was a happy yes. They planned their future together, but their idol was broken when Kevin disappeared without a trace. Kevin owed Uncle Nick a huge sum, $100,000. He had borrowed the money a few months ago to save a friend's failed business. The business went under, and the debt remained. Kevin hoped to earn and repay it, but Uncle Nick was not patient. One evening, when Kevin was returning home, he was grabbed by unknown men and taken to an unknown location. Katia learned about this from a neighbor who saw Kevin being dragged into a black car. She was initially shocked, but quickly composed herself. She decided not to give up easily. Starting with Kevin's phone book, Katia contacted his friends. One of them, Alex, knew more about Kevin's problems. He explained that the debt was serious and that Uncle Nick was a dangerous person with hideouts all over the city. Katia, along with Alex and two other friends, Nick and Maria, began searching for Kevin. They visited places where debtors might be hiding, asked around, and contacted Kevin's old partners. In one of the bars, they accidentally came across one of Nick's men, who let slip that Kevin was being held at a warehouse outside the city. Katia and her friends understood that they needed to act quickly, but without a plan, they risked everything. They found a way to contact one of Nick's former debtors, who had managed to escape unscathed. He explained that Nick wasn't just interested in money, he also sought information or services. Katia learned that Nick was after compromising material on one of his competitors. An idea came to her. She and her friends decided to find the compromising material, exchange it for Kevin, and buy time to pay off the debt. It was a risky plan, but they had no other choice to save Kevin. Katia discovered that the compromising material was on James, known by his nickname Iron Skull. He had earned the name after a fight with Uncle Nick, during which Nick nearly killed him by hitting him in the head. James survived, and a metal plate was implanted in his skull. Since then, there had been a cold war between them, and compromising material on James was the only thing that could give Nick an advantage. Katia, along with Alex, Nick, and Maria, began looking for where this compromising material might be stored. Rumor had it that James kept his secrets hidden. However, they learned from a local informant that James often met with his accountant at the nightclub Shadow. According to the informant, this was where the key to his hidden dealings might be found. The team split up. Alex and Maria were to watch the accountant, while Katia and Nick infiltrated the club, where, as they were told, there might be a safe with documents in the service room. The operation was dangerous. Many people in the club worked for James, and any mistake could cost them their lives. Katia and Nick, after sneaking into the service area, found the safe, but it was protected by a complex code. Meanwhile, Alex and Maria were watching the accountant and noticed him saying a code phrase, "The red key is our salvation." Katia realized that the red key was a flash drive the accountant always carried with him. The team decided to act immediately. Maria distracted the accountant by accidentally bumping into him in the hall, while Alex, during the scuffle, snatched the flash drive from his pocket. Katia and Nick returned to the safe and opened it using the flash drive. Inside, They found papers and records that exposed James's illegal activities, including his connections with the police. Now Katia had the compromising material, but that was just the beginning. She knew that handing over this information to Uncle Nick could not only save Kevin but also bring new dangers. Katia and her team headed to the large house outside the city, where they had learned Uncle Nick often stayed. This information was provided by a friend who had previously dealt with Nick. Uncle Nick owned a luxurious mansion located far from the city, surrounded by high fences, with numerous guards patrolling the area. When the team arrived at the mansion, the guard stopped them at the entrance. However, when they said they had compromising material on James, which could ruin James's connections and business, the guards immediately escorted them through the premises and into the house. They passed through lavish halls decorated with antique furniture and expensive paintings and entered a large room where Uncle Nick himself sat. He looked calm and confident, not surprised by their visit. His gaze was cold and calculating. Nick appeared older, but with such influence and power that every step he took commanded respect. His voice was not angry, but laced with suspicion as he asked, "What have you brought, and why should I listen to you?" Katia, feeling the pressure of the situation, showed him the flash drive with the compromising material. She explained that the records on it could cause a major catastrophe for James if he didn't comply with Nick's demands. She offered a deal, the compromising material in exchange for Kevin's life. Nick studied her carefully before reacting. He didn't rush, making it clear that he was still considering his next steps. However, he couldn't ignore Katia's determination and persistence in trying to save Kevin. Nick's response was brief. "I appreciate your courage, but remember, girl, I don't easily let people go, especially someone like your friend." He gestured to the guards, who took the compromising material, not giving Katia a chance to object. Nick looked at her and her team one more time before saying, "Today, you've proven you have spirit, but for that, you'll have to pay. Let's see how it ends for your friend." He added that Kevin would stay alive, but only if Katia continued to cooperate. Nick clearly had his own plans for how to use the information. Katia realized that although she had managed to save Kevin from immediate danger, this was not the end of the struggle. She understood that the compromising material was not the ultimate solution, as Nick might use it for his own purposes. She decided to take another route. If she couldn't rely on Nick, she would turn to James himself, who, despite his cruelty, wasn't completely indifferent to human lives. She found him in one of his hideouts on the outskirts of the city. James, sitting on an old sofa, listened attentively to her story. Katia explained that Kevin was in Uncle Nick's hands and that only he, as Nick's old enemy, could help. James didn't need much time to make a decision. He had long dreamed of taking down Nick, and this was an opportunity not only to rid himself of a rival, but also to help Katia. He knew that Nick wasn't holding Kevin without a reason, and that his connections could be a problem. But despite all the risks, James decided to act. He gathered his team and prepared a plan. James managed to find a weakness in Nick's security and, together with his men, carried out a clever operation. They not only rescued Kevin but also took him to a safe location where Nick's men couldn't reach him. Nick, enraged, tried to organize a pursuit, but it was too late. A few days later, Kevin returned to Katia. They embraced, and although they knew peace and quiet wouldn't come immediately, they were already free from Nick and his games. A year later, after Katia and Kevin had rebuilt their lives, they had a son. They decided to name him James, after the one who not only helped them but became a true hero of this story. The boy was charming, with bright eyes and a joyful smile, and every time he laughed, it reminded them how, in a world filled with dark forces, sometimes it only takes one strong person to change everything. James grew up surrounded by love, and for Katia and Kevin, he became a symbol of a new life, free from fear, with hope for the future where even the darkest times could be overcome if they were together.